Hey, Jim, can you tell me if you can hear me? Yeah? Awesome. Okay, perfect. You're the only one there. Hey, guys. I see a few more people joining. Welcome, everyone. It's going to be an exciting show tonight. We're going to talk about 1939. And if you haven't watched anything so far, it's not a problem because I'll catch you up. But it's a big year because it's actually scary how fast it's escalating. Hey, Phil. And you're going to see the comparison to what's happening today is scary as heck. You're going to want to stay here for this today as we cover this. So Germany, 1939. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Coca-Cola, who decided this year to go from making, I guess, delicious beverages to making racism, I guess. They're producing that now. But the reason I want to talk about that company, it's happening all over. It's not just Coca-Cola who's doing that. There's a lot of people who are reporting that within the corporations they work, they're starting to get these like equity training and like communist type things that are coming down, and they're having to do that. And a lot of them is turning towards racism. And it's no surprise really that they're doing that. So Coca-Cola was in a pickle this week because they actually had all of their training got leaked. And I can't remember the name of the girl who she does only this. She only talks about these kinds of corporate training and how they're super communist and they're trying to train people that way. But anyways, something like Carolyn or Karen, anyway, she's awesome. And she used to be a huge lefty, and she came over to the balanced approach of questioning things, and she actually leaked it. It was leaked to her, and she was able to go and comment on it. So pretty big news this week with Coca-Cola. But a lot of people do not know that Coca-Cola has a very shady past. So we know they've given a lot of people diabetes, but now they're giving you racist training. But they actually have done this before. This is not the first time they're involved in some kind of racial profiling and trying to diss an entire category of people. So yeah, I agree, Faye, stop buying Coke. But hello, I just want to say a quick hello to a bunch of people there that I see. I recognize you guys in there. So Phil, I already said hi to you, but you get a special double hi because you are such an awesome guy. I see Tommy Gunn's in there. Jesus, hello, Jesus. Nicole, GDR maker, Tommy Gunn. Huad, I hope I'm saying it right. I know you're always so nice to me, no matter how much I butcher your name, but Huad is here. I love Huad. Spike is here. Faye Knox is here. Faye has been one of my first followers as well. A lot of people have been there a long time on my channel. And hey, Tyler, how's it going? So anyways, okay, Coca-Cola, what the heck did they do with the Nazis? So what happened is back in the 30s, so Coca-Cola was obviously present in America, and they were kind of branching out all over the world. And they went to Germany, and they had the 30s, they were okay, you know, they're distributing Coke and everything. But they decided to align themselves with the Nazi party. So Coca-Cola, who is now telling us that white people need to be less white, also managed to, via indirect communication, support Nazis who were saying that Jewish people should be less Jewish, essentially, and should actually be annihilated. So it's, you know, very, very dark. So to me, it's not super surprising that Coca-Cola has actually done that. What's more surprising to me is that they didn't learn from their mistake. I was kind of hoping they would have learned from their Nazi past, but they actually didn't, because they are back here in 2021 telling white people to be less arrogant, less ignorant, and less white. So that is essentially what was in the training. So what did they do in the 30s? They were aligned with the Nazi youth. So they would send these like huge Coca-Cola trucks to go around with the parades of Hitler youth, I think there's even like the Germans hid this because they didn't want this, and Coca-Cola double hid it. They're like, nah, we never knew about the Nazis. Like that's the Coca-Cola stance. But they actually had a picture of Goering, who's one of the biggest Nazis out there, and he was like just drinking a Coca-Cola, and they used that in their advertisement. So a lot of different techniques were used to market Coca-Cola alongside with the Nazi Party, and the biggest kind of marketing thing they did back in 36. So you guys remember we covered the Olympics a few weeks ago. Well, Coca-Cola was a huge brand at the Olympics, and they were trying to market Coca-Cola to the German people at that time. So that is how Coca-Cola kind of become really a big thing in Germany. And they had a guy, his name was Max something, I don't even remember his name. I read up on this after this because I remember they had a Nazi connection. But this Max guy, and he was the main guy who was in charge of doing the Nazi marketing of Coca-Cola, or I should say the marketing of Coca-Cola in Nazi Germany. And he actually started running out of the supplies of Coke. So what they would do is they would ship like the syrup, and then they would bottle it on site. So they had all these manufacturing places. And as they would bottle it, they would rely on the shipments coming in of the syrup. So once the syrup was there, bottling production starts, and then they distribute. But with the war breaking out, so 1939, which is the year we're covering this time, 1939, they actually were not able to get that Coca-Cola thing anymore because the US kind of turned against Germany, and they started having a lot of prohibition on importing stuff. So some of the Western countries were starting to restrict what they were exporting over into Germany, so Germany couldn't get stuff. That was like the worst explanation word salad I just put out there. Anyways, hey Rage. So Howard too. Hello guys. So anyways, they couldn't get the Coca-Cola anymore. So this one guy, Max, he's like, oh, what are we going to do? And they're under like severe restrictions because they were funneling all of the stuff to the army, all of the food. So rationing had started. So that's where they invented Fanta. So essentially they would take old like fruit scraps, and they would kind of, I don't know how they did it. It's kind of like, I think they're a little embarrassed about how they created Fanta. So anyways, they kind of crushed it together. They ended up making this like orange juice thing that became Fanta. And then that was the drink of people. And I remember reading that the people in Germany would actually use Fanta to like put in their soup and put in their, like just to make things taste better when you're only down to your last bag of beans or something. And they would just cook it with Fanta. So that's essentially how Fanta came about after they couldn't get the Coke in there. So very close connection between Coca-Cola and our Nazis in 1939 to 1945 Germany. And Coca-Cola is embarrassed about that. And I really do wish, like, how did Coca-Cola learn that and come out and said, yeah, we were aligned with the Nazi Party. We've got new management now. We're not going to do that ever again, like never again. But nope, 2021 rolls around and Coca-Cola just decides to do the exact same thing, but to a new group of people, which is now the white people. So it seems to me Coca-Cola is just going after the most opportunistic kind of like social thing of the moment, whatever is like in vogue. They're like, we don't question it. We have no morals. We'll just do whatever, right? To sell to sell our product. And now they're going after whites because they seem to think they have the power to do that. And by the way, why is it that during the worst pandemic, everything is shut down? We need to find a vaccine and all that. How is it that these governments, these corporations, these people are able to concern themselves with things that are not directly impacting our health, right? Like, wouldn't all hands be on deck for handling the pandemic? Like, if your ship is sinking, you're not going to start worrying about like what ovens you have in the kitchen of the boat, you know, or what chairs are in the hallway. Like, if your boat's sinking, like everybody's going to try to fix the boat. But right now, they're concerning themselves with all of these things that are not COVID related, and it's because they're pushing an agenda, right? I'm going to refer to my notes here. I took a whole bunch of crazy notes. You guys should see this. Like, it's like pages and pages of this crazy stuff, but I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything today. And most of these notes come to me, or these ideas come whilst I sleep, and I wake up with these things, and then I have to. So anyways, I sleep with one of these by my bed so I can write stuff down, but it looks kind of crazy erratic. It reminds me of, side note, because I'm like super squirrel today. There was like, I found one of these really dark YouTube channels where this guy was trying to get, this is just like fun facts for you guys to entertain you a little bit, but this guy had in his room, he shows himself videotaping an entire room of like these kinds of books. And in it, he just wrote something like, P. Diddy, like, listen to me, like Puff Daddy, right? So, and it's like he was trying to get P. Diddy's attention. What's his new name, P. Diddy? Can somebody put it in the chat? Like, he rebranded like in the mid 2010s, right? Like 2005. What's his new name now? He used to be Puff Daddy, then he became P. Diddy, and now he's, oh fuck, I don't remember. Sorry, I just swore there. I hope no kids are watching. But anyways, so that was crazy. So I kind of have a little bit of that guy in me, but except that I'm not obsessed with somebody. I'm not writing about that. I'm writing about this kind of content in the middle of the night. But anyways, why are corporations like Coca-Cola and governments trying to push this kind of thing while we're in a pandemic, where realistically we should be concerned about the pandemic? Well, it's because it really is a division tactic, right? So they've isolated us in our homes. The only place people can still go is kind of our workplaces for some of us. Some of us work from home. Some of us still have our jobs that we actually physically go to. And they're trying to control people. And the best way to do that is to divide people on these ridiculous subjects that really mean nothing. And while people are fighting about that, they're doing more important, power consolidation and tyrannical moves while we're not paying attention. So this whole thing that's happening with the let's hate all the white people is specifically because they're trying to divide us in the last places that we have left. And corporations are kind of like the low-hanging fruit, right? Because think about it. If you have a whole bunch of people that were let go, so they're not with you anymore with your corporation because you had to downsize because of the pandemic, well, the people who are left are kind of going to be a bit scared about losing their job too. So it's the perfect strategic moment for like these evil corporation HR people to come in and say, we're going to force these anti-white, racist, whatever propaganda called training on our people, because who's going to complain? They're not going to complain. They're actually going to just do it and shut up about it. And for the most part, I think they're right. I mean, I don't see, even people that have my opinions, like they share my opinions on this, they still sit down and do the training and they're just like, okay, I'll just do it really quick and half pay attention and whatever. And they do the training. But the problem is they do the training. So, I mean, I'm hoping that more people can be like just super upset about that and risk losing their job. I don't know if it's maybe a wish on my behalf, but I know that if it comes into the corporation that I'm at, I will deny doing it. I'll decline doing it. I don't think it's appropriate to infuse racism. And Coke, like, this is what kind of makes me the angriest about why Coke is doing it. Places like Coke or Disney, is because those guys have like the easiest job to stay apolitical, like the easiest job. Coca-Cola, what is it you need to do? All right, you need to put a good refreshing beverage in a bottle or a can, and then you need to ship it out, right? So you should be concerned about, are your trucks on time? Are they delivering? Are your trucks being hijacked on the highway because people want to steal all the Coke that's in the back, right? Those are the things you should be worried about, not how do we get our white employees to be less white? It's completely nonsensical, has absolutely no impact on the job. Can you imagine the guys in the bottling factory who are just there, like the guy is just, I don't know, putting the cap on and all day long, that's all he does. And he has to sit there and be like, I have to be less white because it's going to help me cap the bottle better. Like it's the biggest nonsensical thing. But as soon as you realize the intent is to divide people in the last remaining places people go, then you've achieved complete, you can do pretty much whatever you want. And by the way, I have to take a breath. I got so angry at Coke there. I don't drink Coke, so it's going to be easy for me not to like, we don't drink soft drinks or any of those things. So it's going to be easy for me not to have that in my home. But I mean, I hope people will ban Coke. But anyways, I have to take a breath because I get so upset. And then I get out of breath. You guys are going to think I'm like in the worst shape of my life because I can't even talk for 15 minutes without getting out of breath. But anyways, and I'm actually really hot now, so I'm going to take off my shoes. I'm wearing my boots in the house. Okay, so Coca-Cola, low-hanging fruit, they shouldn't have been doing this. It seems to be happening everywhere, all corporations, and I hope more people are going to be able to stand up to this, because we need to not be divided by this, right? So at least if you do the training because you have to, and you like, I don't want people to feel bad, because I understand people are in different positions and have different level of comfort of how they can do things, what they can put up with. And maybe that's not the hill for you to die on. But I hope at least if you do that, you're kind of forming like a small group within where you're able to talk about it, right? Like find colleagues that you can talk to, that you feel comfortable with, and try to see if they're on board, and maybe use them to form a little mini alliance. It's almost like Big Brother. Form an alliance with the people that you want to. No point in wasting your time on people that you know are going to vote you out, right? So anyways, so yeah, that's it for Coca-Cola. Very disappointing. I guess the salvation in this whole Coca-Cola thing is that it's not the government making this into law. So that's where we're going to run into some real issues, is the minute that the government starts putting this into law, and it's mandated across the board no matter what, right? So that's kind of what happened in Germany with the Jews and the gypsies and the homosexuals and all those guys. They were just basically outlawed one day, and then they couldn't do anything about it, stripped of citizenship and everything. So anyways, okay. So that was it. I'm going to talk to you about why this COVID stuff is the most dangerous thing, because we're coming up on the 1 year. So 1 year is coming up. I think next week is the 1 year, or the week after is the 1 year where we essentially closed the Western world. And why it's so dangerous is because now anybody who wants to seize massive amounts of power has a blueprint. This is it. They have the blueprint. This is why it's so scary. All they had to do was hide their agenda behind a public health crisis. And with that, people are willing to give up almost all their freedoms. And that to me is what I find is the most dangerous thing about COVID. It's no longer a pandemic, because it's been going on for a year. It's too long now. They haven't really done much to find solutions. You know how they have military hospitals for people who are in the military? Well, they should have built by now COVID hospitals. Like, we should literally have, instead of wasting any money on trying to tell people 16 times a day they have to wash their hands and wear a mask, a lot of that money should have gone into actually building infrastructure to specifically assist the COVID patients. And you put people there who want to work with the COVID patients, maybe incentivize them a little bit more financially to go and do that, so that they want to, and then that's it, right? That was it. That was all they needed to do, and then they should have just protected the elderly class, the more at-risk people. But they didn't do that. They locked everybody down, and they realized we can actually lock them down. We can force them to wear masks. Then we can come and say you have to wear 2 masks. And they actually take it seriously. They actually do it. People are okay with it. We tell them to social distance. So let's make these like round things on the floor. We're going to put them there, and it's going to say 6 meters apart. And people will stand on them. They'll stand on the circles like that. The year was spent showing the government they can literally take over anything under the banner of health crisis. So that means if they want to keep this going, it's super easy. They're going to say, 17th wave of COVID is coming. You guys need to go back in your houses. We can't have you go outside. Close out everything. There's 16 variants now. Now we have I think California just came up with a variant. That variant is called Communism, by the way. If it's out of California, it's either really good wine or communism. It's kind of true. But anyways, so yeah, it's really insane that this is what we've achieved in a year. We've achieved the blueprint for any future government. And the worst part about this is the first time that this was international, right? Like global, like it's applicable to all societies everywhere. So it's absolutely scary to me that this is the new blueprint that we have, and the governments and the corporations who are now working together actually know what to do. They can collude ahead of time the next time. If this one, I suspect probably some governments and some Corporations may have colluded before, mostly around the vaccine. I don't think it was a complete surprise to them. But next time, they can actually preemptively plan this whole thing and then launch a health crisis on us. And people will say, okay, yeah, I'm going to stand on my little circle 6 meters apart. If I go to my friend's house, I can't go in, so I'm going to drop something on the porch and never see her again. I'm going to Zoom all of my meetings now. Like, it's very scary that, and it took them 1 year. That's all it took. It took them 1 year. And now they have their blueprint and they're going for it. So what's the remedy to this? I don't think you can vote. We can't vote our way out of this. I don't even know if we can fight our way out of this. But I think it's going to be about forming small communities around where you are. So I've already started in my area, and I even have a few people that have kind of figured out where I live, creepers, and I've included them into this community thing that we're starting, and it's like a bit of a if things go wrong, like who do you call, who do you turn to, and all that thing. So we kind of have a little bit of a plan in place, and yeah. So that's the only thing I think we can do at this point to prepare to waver as much as we can this tyrannical 4 or 5 years we're about to go through until we can get enough people red-pilled and fight back. So anyways, okay, super long intro, 25 minutes, and I didn't even get to my topic. But anyways, here we go, guys. Okay, I'll catch you up for you guys who did not see the last few episodes, and I'm going to do it really quick because I know a lot of you have. I just have to find it now. There it is. Okay, so again, this is a recap from this book that I've been sharing every week. I will bear witness, Victor Klemperer. And what's happened so far in Victor's life is pretty crappy. So 1933, Hitler gets to be appointed. So this is where Victor starts recording his diary. And 1934 is where the president of Germany actually dies, and Hitler takes over the presidency, and he abolishes the chancellor post, so he becomes totalitarian at that point. 1935, they vote in the Nuremberg laws. The Nuremberg laws is when the Jewish religion became Jewish as a race, right? So before then, they just were like white Germans, but that practiced the Jewish religion. Now the Nuremberg laws made them an actual race. And the goal was so that they could discriminate based on race. 1936, they had the Olympic Games with sponsored by Coca-Cola. We just learned that today. 1937, this is where it became super hopeless, and a lot of Jews are realizing they need to flee. So a lot of people are trying to leave. There's a lot of lockdowns, constant fear. And this is where 1938, they have, which was last week, they have the Crystal Night of the Kristallnacht. Anyways, this is where a bunch of people from the SS and the SA went in and destroyed the Jewish businesses, burned down synagogues, took over people's homes, that kind of deal. So that's where we're at. We're at 1939 now. And if you weren't scared before, I am reporting that you're going to be scared tonight. So, okay, I won't read from the book because I'm finding that as the chapters progress, it's like Victor has no more opportunity to calmly write and gather his thoughts, so he's starting to be a little bit more erratic. And I found it a really tough read before because he's talking about people he hasn't introduced to us. It's very tough because he throws in names, throws in events, and if you're not caught up with these things, you wouldn't know what it is. So it's a little bit of a tough read, and I don't like to read it on air anymore like I used to. And anyways, so last week I tried to pre-record myself, and I just didn't have time this week because I like to use the Call of Duty music as the background for my narration of this book. But I didn't have time this week. I was super busy at work. So anyways, so I took notes in another page of my crazy book. And I basically took the notes, and I'm going to read only 2 excerpts today. So what happens in 1939? Going to kill the punch right now. They go to war. September 1st, they invade Poland. See, I got rid of my chair so I could stand because I find I was like too restricted, and now I'm dancing on camera, which is horrible. I hate to say that, dancing on camera, because then somebody's gonna go like, "Oh, do you have a, what is it called? One only ad? I can't remember what somebody asked me that in one of my live streams. Do you have the pay one where it's like inappropriate?" But no, I don't have one, guys. Stop asking. Okay, so the German Jews that were in Germany in 1939, if you hadn't gotten out, it's about to get really tough to actually leave. So a lot of people are realizing in 1939 what's going on, even early, so before September, before the actual war broke out, a lot of people are realizing what's going on, and it becomes very tough to leave. So a lot of people are kind of spiraling into depression because they kind of see what's coming. There's a huge intensification of hatred, so it was already very prevalent before, but it's even worse now. It's everywhere you go. So kind of like, and it was propaganda. So kind of like where, like, think about your life today. You can't leave your house and go anywhere without being reminded about COVID, right? COVID this, COVID that, social distance, circle, put your mask on. You can only come into the store at this time. Only 25% of the capacity of this restaurant is allowed to eat in here. Like, it's just nuts, right? So it's kind of the same way for the Jews who were in Germany still at this time. They cannot go anywhere without seeing the hatred directed at Jews. And I'm thinking that so they actually, Victor actually talks in early 1939 about how him and his wife is a German, by the way. She's not Jewish. She's a German Aryan. So she qualifies as like the purebred Aryan. So that's why Victor managed to avoid going to a concentration camp, is because his wife was Aryan. So that's what saved him in the end. But they go to a restaurant, and they've been going to this restaurant for years. But they show up, and there's a big sign on the door that says "No Jews allowed." And they know, because at this point, they are carding everybody in a way, right? Papieren, die Papieren bitte. They're asking everybody for their papers no matter where you go. So they're able to really quickly see, oh, this is a Jew, right? So they go there, and they're denied entry. So they kind of bummed out, go back home, and they realize what's happening, right? And what's like, I was thinking about that, and it reminds me of, you know how in the restaurants you have like no shirt, no shoes, no service? I wouldn't be surprised that in a few months, maybe a year, it will be no shoes, no shirt, no vaccine, no service. And that's kind of the same idea. So it's not the exact replica. It's not the philosophy is the same, but the circumstances are different. So the philosophy is saying, we're going to take an entire section of the population that are measured by this metric, in this case, the Jewish metric, but in our case, the vaccination metric, and we're going to deny them entry into certain parts of society. Tell me how that's different, because from a philosophical perspective, I don't see the difference, right? I just see a replication of history. And somebody told me one time in the channel, in the comments, I was reading them, and he said, "Oh, you're not saying anything new." I'm like, hello, that's literally what I do. I'm here to tell you this has all happened before. Of course, I'm not saying anything new. I'm telling you this happened before, and it's happening again. So it kind of made me laugh, because I'm like, I majored in history. That's what I do. I tell people all these things that are not new. But anyways, okay. There is also a huge hike in taxes. So this is for Victor, 1939 Victor. Hike in taxes, and the Jewish population is forced to surrender their silver. So it would be super embarrassing too, because what they would do, the Germans, they got the local Jewish leaders to be collecting from the Jewish population in their area all the silver. So they're making the Jews conduct this against the other Jews. It's just horrific on so many levels, right? Okay. By March 1939, if you try to leave, you can't. It's very tough. So Victor and his wife, they actually went to the American consulate, and they tried to get papers to leave Germany. And they got to be on the waiting list, and they were number 56,429. So that's the waiting list. And because Germany is about to go to war, the immigration is not going to become a priority anymore. They don't care about people trying to leave the country. They're just more worried about the war effort. So in 1939 is also an exhibition called, it's called The Eternal Jew. It's a touring exhibition. So it's going, they're packing it up and bringing it up to all the cities in Germany, and people go and visit it. And that exhibition was in 1938 that it started. And I think it started in Berlin. And what it was is all these art pieces depicting the Jewish person as some form of subhuman. So like they would look like apes, or they would look like, there'd be like look like evil cartoons, right? That was a big thing in Germany, the evil cartoon guy, the Jew with a big nose and like stealing your money when you're not looking. Like that's exactly what they did. And think about Coca-Cola and their whole idea that all white people are ignorant. Like imagine like how much of a stretch would it be for Coca-Cola to say in a training module, all whites are ignorant, and then to put up a poster in their Coca-Cola, I don't know, their headquarters or wherever in the break room, where it says a cartoon of a white person being super ignorant, right? It's not a far stretch. This is what I'm trying to convey to everybody. This is so not a far stretch. We are 1939 Germany right now, and people don't see it. But the worst part is in 1939, things, you'll see there's one day we're going to get to it. Things escalate so fast in the span of one day, you won't believe it. And that is the danger that we are in. We're in the danger that these COVID measures can be used to remove the entire rest of our freedoms and force vaccination on people. So that's kind of where we're at. Okay. Propaganda is galore. Of course it is, because it's Germany. And so they have they hate England at this point because they think they're a bit intimidated by the English armed forces and the Navy. So they're afraid that England's gonna fight back. So they're hoping it stays neutral. But the propaganda against England is kicking in high gear at this point in June 1939. By August 29th, actually, the food rations begin. So this is just before the war breaks out. A lot of people were still saying, this is what he reports in his book, a lot of people were still saying, I don't think the war is going to break out. And if it breaks out, it's going to last 3 days. Like, we're just going to invade Poland, and then they're going to fight back, and we're going to come back home, or we're going to win, and we're just going to take Poland, right? Kind of like they did with Austria the year before, where they just invaded Austria and said, you're part of the Nazi world now. So it's the food rations are starting, and people are still in disbelief. They're still kind of denying the whole thing. And I see that all the time. People who would like, just wear your mask, just wear it. It's just going to be for one more week. And then one more week becomes another year. Or just wear 2 masks, or just stay home. Like, don't go outside. Don't do anything with your friends. Don't go and do anything normal that a human being would be. Just stay home and just do it, okay? It's just for one more day. But it ends up being another year. So this is the exact danger that we're in. I believe we are going to have food rations soon as well. All it's going to take, I'm in Canada. It's going to take in Canada is a breakdown of supply chain. It's funny. I think they're going after the meat first, because they're running this whole thing is a communist agenda, but the green agenda, the Greta Thunberg agenda, which is the climate change agenda, is part of this green thing. And I think they're going to go after meat production. They're going to declare that there was an outbreak, because who knows, right? All the people testing work for the government. So how do you know that it's not a whole propaganda, right? Like, I'd like independent testing on my COVID, please. But no, it's all government agents that are doing the testing. So how are we to know that we don't? Can we even question it? That's the point at this point. But if we were even allowed to question it, which we still are now, and you all should be questioning this, if you question that, can you get an independent test to prove? But they won't. They won't allow that. I'm sure they won't allow that, because they need to keep control. So with them knocking out the meat industry in the name of global warming, global whatever, climate change, whatever it is now, because it's certainly not warming with the cold winter we've had in Ontario. But that's how they're going to do it. They're going to knock out meat first and then say, okay, well, we should go more plant-based. And I think because everything the government touches just ends up being terrible, that you could give them the most perfect thing and they'll destroy it in a day. So because we're going to give them some, like, we're going to say, okay, let's try to go for plant-based something. They're going to take control of whatever plant-based is, and they're going to manage to ruin that too. So because of that, because of huge bureaucratic incompetence, we are going to have food shortage. It's just a matter of when it's coming. I don't really know. I hope you guys are preparing a little bit for this, because if there is some kind of even a panic about food shortages, that could be enough to cause massive issues. Just look at what Texas just went through, right? So if you haven't prepared already during the first wave of COVID, you still have time. It's still a good idea to become a bit of a prepper at this point and just go for it, right? Okay, so August 29th, food ration cards are distributed. September 1st, a few days later, Hitler invades Poland. So Poland is at war now. He declares war, and then they start seeing some blackouts for the first few weeks. And at some point, the blackouts become almost permanent. September 10th, I'm going to read that. I put a big note saying read that part, so I guess it was really good. Let me just open it, guys. September 10th, I said, eh? All right. There we go. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So Eva, that's his wife, Victor's wife. Eva says, the war is being covered up. That is true in all respects and is a mistake. There was no mobilization. People were fetched individually from their beds. No casualty lists are being issued. The flags are not being put out, even though Warsaw has already been reached in the first week. Nothing is said about the front in the west. The butcher's shop have to shut on the facing side to the street. People line up in the courtyard, and they do this because they don't want Germany to think anything really bad is happening out there in Poland with the war starting. So they're trying to put on a facade of normal. So people are lining up just in the back of the store instead of going in through the front door to make it look like it's okay. If you happen to be strolling down the street, you're not alarmed, right? This is the view that has to be maintained. War only with Poland and the quickest victory possible, but at the same time, constantly intensified measures. Doesn't that sound familiar? Constantly intensified measures. Where have I heard that before? Which point to a long war. Income tax raised by 50%. 50%. Permanent blackout. Yesterday, warning of punishment since blackout discipline was slacking. So, their warning of punishment since their blackout discipline was slacking. Where have I heard that before? So, warning of punishment because people were not social distancing. Warning of punishment because people went to a restaurant. Warning of punishment because business owners opened their restaurant during lockdown. Again, somebody tell me in the chat how this is different. How is now what we're doing with COVID different than what they did back then? Yesterday, flour was added to the list of restricted foodstuffs. He actually put that word, foodstuffs. I've never heard that, but he's a really big intellectual. So I'm guessing, I don't know if it's the translation because he wrote it in German, but it's just, maybe it's an old word from the 30s that I didn't know about. Anyways, since there is less and less in the fish shops, since frequently not enough meat is delivered to make up even the rationed amount, then everyone has to turn to food made with flour. Therefore, each person has to ask himself how long bread will remain unrationed. And each person has to ask himself how these orders accord with a view of a short war with Poland. So this is the same predicament we're in. How are all of these measures we're doing for COVID warranted on a disease that doesn't even kill as much as we thought? It kills the elderly, which is very sad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like trying to get the elderly wiped out. It's tragic, but it kills people with very, very big comorbidities. But how you shouldn't shut down the entire Western world because we have a disease that affects only a small amount of the population. We have diseases that have done worse. We have yearly diseases like the flu that claims more people's lives, and we don't do this for the flu, only under COVID. So again, same idea. Okay. The whole business is very dubious and must appear dubious. All universities closed down except for Berlin, Vienna, blah, 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 a couple others. Gasoline shortage. Oh, and we're going to get that one too. Rationing. Yesterday, threat to punish driving for pleasure. Okay. So 1939 Germany, if you drive for pleasure, you can get a fine. 2021 Canada, USA, Europe, you go out of your house for any other reasons than the four they mentioned, you drive for pleasure, you are also going to get a fine. It's same thing. I don't know, I could scream it all day long, right, guys? But anyways. Okay, and by the way, we're also going to get gasoline shortage, so get ready for that. Yesterday, for the first time in the military bulletin, 2 French aircraft shot down in the West. Until now, France has not been mentioned at all as belligerent. Right, so this is he's referring he's referring to the propaganda. So they're basically being told in Germany that France didn't join Poland against Germany, because Germany wants to keep the impression that Poland is the only one at war with them, and there's no allies. Poland is all alone, and Germany's going to win. So that's the propaganda. So they don't want to tell people that France is involved. So that's why they're upset about that in Germany, that France is mentioned at all. They were trying to keep it under wraps. 20% war tax in the cigar shops, and for the time being, a maximum of only 5 cigarettes. So all of this is exactly what we're doing. We are also going to get the hike in tax. I'm not sure when those are happening. I'm pretty sure they're happening soon, but this is coming. And we were also told, or people thought this war is going to be like, oh, super short. This war, I view COVID as war now. COVID is going to be super easy. Like, don't worry, we're going to get rid of it. 2-week lockdown, save the healthcare system. And we're a year later, just like these guys thought, okay, war with Poland, easy peasy. Germans got this. 3 days and we're done. And that thing lasted until 1945. So that was a 6-year war. So this is very, very similar, and it's eerie. And because people don't know history, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to literally put the facts in here so that people can see that we're doing the same thing that would happen in Nazi Germany. And I'm not picking on the Nazis because it's like cool and everybody hates the Nazis. It's because the similarities are parallels, but just in 2 different like time space continuums, if you want, right? There's very similar. I'm having trouble finding. This is why I like reading from people who wrote at the time, because you find all sorts of little tidbits of information that are not in the history books. So I'm trying to find an actual a diary from Soviet Russia, and trust me, I look like I'm going after the Nazis all the time, because this series is literally dedicated to going to all the way to 1945 with this guy. But I still hate the commies. So I know a lot of people out there are worried because I seem to only hate on the Nazis. I hate the commies just as much. And the Nazis are commies. They're just national communists. They're national socialists. They're just not international socialists, which is what the USSR had the ambition to become. Universal. They wanted communism everywhere. So, and also a little tidbit of fact here, because it was a Jewish person who I think came up with communism. It's debatable, but for the most part, people agree that Karl Marx, I have to calm down to say his name because my blood boils. It's like Trudeau, my blood boils. But Karl Marx was Jewish, and so a lot of people are angry at the whole Jewish population because one guy invented communism. He didn't invent communism because he was Jewish. He invented communism because he was an idiot who didn't understand the world. He was sheltered. He was like an AOC, right? Who like just had so much money from a very early, a young age, and doesn't have life experience, never actually worked a real job, and now is pushing communism on you. So that's kind of what Karl Marx did. So I hate the commies just as much. Don't you worry. Just because I'm looking at the Nazis right now, and the Nazis. documented everything. So that's the difference too. Why it's so easy to refer from a historical perspective to the insane things the Nazis did is because they were actually convinced at the time of doing those things that they were going to be worldwide winners. They were going to win. Nazi was going to become the whole world, right? So they were going to start with Germany and then expand a little bit around, but eventually they actually thought about, Nazis are going to dominate the world. So they were proud of what they were doing and they documented everything. This is why we have so many historical modern, like people that reported back on that of Nazis trying to burn stuff at the end of the war, right? When the commies when the Soviets are coming in and the Americans and the English, like everybody's coming in to liberate Germany, and they're starting to burn stuff, like they're burning their records because they knew that they were going to be screwed if this ever gets exposed. But there were so many records, and the Germans, you know how good they are at record keeping. They are meticulous, right? There's even a story that the Ukrainian Jews, when Hitler went to Ukraine and started to round up the Jews from Ukraine, there's a historical account that it was so easy to round them up because the Ukrainians kept such good record keeping on people's religion and where they were born. So they were able to very quickly round up all the Jews there. So anyways, good record keeping is good sometimes, but not so good some other times. So as everything is, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, they kept everything on record, super proud of it. And they actually, that's how we know so much about Nazi Germany, right? Okay. September 11th, Victor has to go through another house search. When we looked at last week, we saw that in 38, they came to his house and they were looking for firearms, and they actually confiscated what they found. And they're going through another house search this time. And one thing to mention during the September 11th house search, they asked him, why aren't you abroad yet, right? So how come you haven't left yet? Because even the police at this point, small local police dudes knew that if you're Jewish and you're not gone by then, you're essentially screwed. They're starting to see the mass the roundup of Jews and bringing them to concentration camps. So people knew what was happening. Okay, September 20th. This is an interesting one for you guys because this might come to us. But they restricted the bank accounts for Jews. So if they restrict the bank accounts, what's to stop Apple Pay from doing that to you because you're a conservative now? Or from Amazon Prime to say, we didn't like that you didn't do your anti-white race training at your company. They reported back to us that you didn't complete your training, so we're going to take away your Prime membership. So all these philosophies are done in the same spirit as before, but just with different technology, right? So back then you had to go in person to the bank, withdraw your money that way. Now it can be done by blocking access from your phone, right, to your account online. So it's one of those things where same thing can happen, and it is. And it's funny because I can't remember where I went this week. I went somewhere. I rarely go out, but I went this week. You think I'd remember what I did when I go out once a week, but anyways. And I was coming back and I was driving behind a bus. And the bus had a sign at the back of the bus that said, you can only enter the bus if you're wearing a mask. And I'm sitting there going, how long? Because I was long behind the bus. So I had a lot of time to think in traffic. But I'm thinking, how long until they come back and say, you can't board this bus until you have a vaccine, right? Maybe 3-4 months. Is that coming next, right? The vaccine passport, is that what's coming next? So, and once you have that, like if you don't get vaccinated, you can easily be shut out from society. And that's essentially what's happening, right? So, okay. Bank accounts restricted. Jews had to also surrender all cash that they already had in their possession. So whatever was not in their bank account. The rations become stricter for Jews. So the entire German population is restricted now for rations. And now for the Jews, it becomes even worse. Ooh, I just knocked my mic too. Hopefully that didn't like destroy your ears, guys. Okay, September 25th, they also have ration card for bread. So we just read in the early September that he was wondering how long that was coming. Well, what is it, 15 days later? Like, you see, September is like such an escalated month in 1939. Like, it's like everything gets tougher in September. And their chocolate is confiscated from everywhere. October, they go through another house search. This time they were looking for books that they could confiscate because the books are dangerous, apparently, just like the parlor is dangerous or Rumble is dangerous. So we got to shut those down if you're a big entity at this point. November 8th, this is a day where somebody tried to assassinate Hitler. So he was giving a speech somewhere. I can't even remember which city he was in, but dude was on the podium, gave his whole speech. He looked like a freak as usual, stepped away from the podium, and then about 10 minutes later, there was a bomb that detonated. So it detonated too late. I think they miscalculated it. Or the speech ended up early. I have no idea because that's not super clear. But the guy who did it was a German anti-Nazi. So just a German, a normal guy like you and I. And he was trying to do something. I'm not advocating bombing things, people. Please don't go and say that. I could just see it now. But anyways, but he was just a normal guy, and he was fed up with the Nazis, and he wanted to get rid of Hitler. Unfortunately, it was unsuccessful. It killed a bunch of people that were still kind of lingering after the speech, but it didn't kill Hitler or any of the Nazi party. And what the Nazis did is they used that to blame England, right? So it's to stir up the hatred against England within Germany, but also to blame the Jews. So they said those Jews colluded with England and they actually tried to kill Hitler. On November 21st, there's a new tax. And this is why I love reading small, like diary books and not just history books, because you hear about stuff that is never reported in history books. And this guy actually talks about something called the Jewish Winter Aid. And it took me a while to figure out what that was because I can't find it anywhere. I did a whole bunch of searches on what is the Jewish Winter Aid. And we'll find out a bit later in the book, but I'll tell you now because I'm going to give you a nice preview. And you don't have to wait like I did to read through the next book to figure out what it is. But what they did is they made the Jewish people that were still in the towns at that point had to do forced labor, but not in a camp, in the city. So if there was a lot of snow, the Jewish people would be rounded up and they would distribute shovels and they would say, go shovel now. And they would have to shovel like the whole street, the road and everything. So that's what Jewish Winter Aid was. And it happened a lot. And so obviously, this is if you have good boots and you have good gloves, you're okay, relatively speaking. But if you were one of those Jews that had everything confiscated and you didn't have anything, you're still rounded up to go do this, and you still had to shovel. But you would have like potato sacks on your feet, and there was a lot of Victor does talk about how he's had other people give him gloves and try to share gloves and share boots so that they wouldn't lose their feet or their fingers from frostbite. So it's that is what the Jewish winter tax is. So you already had to give almost everything you had to the Nazis if you're a Jew. And once they've taken everything from you, now they start taking your physical, like your ability, your physical ability. So either they put you in a camp or they actually leave you in the town you are, but they round you up to go and snowplow everywhere. So, yeah. And we'll talk more about this snowplowing operation because the second book actually has a lot more mention of that. Okay, December. December is a very tough month, because this is the month. So Victor and his wife live in a house with a cat, and they love their cat, always talking about their cat throughout the two books. But they get evicted from their house. For what reason? Not because they're Jewish. So that is literally the only reason. You guys are Jewish. The wife even needs, she isn't. She's Aryan. We already talked about that earlier. She's German, a German Aryan. But they evict her and Victor from the house because Victor is a Jew. And what they were doing is they were putting them in places within the city that had all the Jewish people. So they'd pick a block and all of the Jews would go there. But they said, because your wife is non-Jewish, we're going to give you 2 rooms instead of just 1. So can you imagine, you live in your house, you have your garden, you have your car that you can't drive anymore, you have your cat that you can't feed, and now the Nazis show up at your door and they're like, dude, you're Jewish, so off you go, you're going to the city center, we've set up a bunch of like places, and you're gonna get a room now, just a room, and that's it. So it's just horrific that this can happen. What worries me about some of the operational aspect of the COVID camps now is that it does seem to be that way. And if they can take a healthy person from a flight and take you, put you in a COVID hotel for 3 days, what's to stop them from ever taking you and just saying, oh, that person, Julie, we don't like her. She's exposing too much of the fraud around COVID. We need to shut her up. So we're going to say she's got COVID, and we're going to put her in a camp, in a COVID camp, right? Or we're going to put her in the middle of the city with Rage and Crit and all these other people at Tassanico who all think similarly, but wrong think, because we're not supposed to say these things, and put us in the middle of a city, and we all have to live together there. Not that I would mind living with you guys. That would be awesome. But I'm just saying it would be kind of a same thing that's happening yet again that we had before. We've seen this all before. So anyways, I have here last note, read page 321. After this, I will be pretty close to done, but I do want to share this one with you. So just give me a second to get there. Okay. So this is where he goes. I'm trying to remember where he is here. Yeah, he's out and about. He had to go to a community house for something, so he's kind of out and about, and he gets stopped. He gets stopped by a party official, so a Nazi party official. So then the party official wanted to talk to me. We would in any case have informed you in the next few days. You must leave your house by April 1st. You can sell it, rent it out, leave it empty. That's your business. Only you have to be out. You are entitled to a room. Since your wife is Aryan, you will be allocated 2 rooms if possible. The man was not at all uncivil. He also completely appreciated the difficulties we shall face, with anyone at all benefiting as a result. The sadistic machine simply rolls over us. So I think a lot of people who have been evicted from their businesses and told they can't work their businesses anymore, they can completely relate to this pain that this guy must have felt. And it's the fact, kind of what tugs at my heart in this whole thing, is that Victor actually says this guy is courteous, right? So you have a Nazi party official coming and telling you that you need to be out of your house, but they're courteous. So it's like the police right now coming and saying to the park and saying, look, listen, you're not supposed to be out, it's locked down, so go back home. It's like they're enforcing tyranny, but they're courteous. Some of them. Alberta police, I don't know what you guys are doing, but for the most part, a lot of our police are fairly civil when it comes to that. And that's what's so alarming. It's the enforcement of tyranny and how easy it is to just do it, just enforce it, and use the police, use the Nazi party officials to go and do that. They have infinite power, the Nazi officials at this point. They can pretty much do whatever they want. And that's what's really, really scary about this whole COVID thing. We have the blueprint for how to do tyranny the right way. And I'm not saying that because I'm in favor of tyranny. I'm just saying we have the blueprint to do this, and we've given consent in a way by not doing anything. And just like Germans gave consent by not doing anything when that was happening in their country, just like well, I was going to say like the commies. I'm trying to bring commie examples into this, but the Ukrainians under Stalin, they fought back, but they were slaughtered, right? So it's kind of a tough thing. It's like when you look at this historically speaking, it's getting really tough out there. And that's why I'm of the opinion for a while, a little bit, I was on the edge of being black-pilled, and black-pilled is when you just kind of give up all hope. But I don't like being in that state of mind because I find it unproductive, and you just like, then you start being like sad all the time is not good, right? You can't do anything when you're like that. So I've got myself out of the black pill mode. I'm back into normal like red pill territory, but it's one of those things where I think the better solution for all this is not to go black pilled like I did. It's really to start in your own community and start to form. I'm not advocating forming a militia. Don't misconstrue, please. But just form like a community within your community, like people who are like-minded. Like when I go to school to pick up my kid, I see that there is one other couple that don't wear a mask, and we've formed an alliance, right? And that's what I think people should do. I've already, all my friends are red pilled at this point, because all the other ones completely just, they got me out. They wanted nothing to do with me, and they cut me off as soon as they found out that I wasn't like a pure like pro Trudeau, like COVID is the real deal and all that stuff. Just for questioning things, I lost a bunch of people that way, but it's okay. I made a bunch of new friends, so that's not depressing either, because I would rather have people that don't constantly just yell at me. There's enough of that in the world. But anyways, so like I think that's the best way. That's what I'm trying to do anyways. And I'm trying, like I'll show you my garden, I think a little bit later this summer when it's a little bit more exciting. Like right now everything's indoors, so it's not great. But I have all these plants that I started, and I'm like a wannabe farmer at this point, which I find really cool. But I'm trying my hand at growing things for myself in case there is something that happens. I know you people are going to say, well, you need guns to protect it. I get it. I get it. But because I'm not like a gun fanatic, and I know pretty much nothing about guns except that I completely believe in the freedom to have them without government intervention. That's the only thing I know about guns, is that we should be allowed to have them, because I don't think we need the government to tell us. But anyways, but yeah, so get plants, seeds, plant them out, try to grow stuff. Like that's what I'm trying to do. You guys do whatever you want, but I think that's a strategy that might actually work by the time we hit the tyranny, because like I said at the start, I don't think we can actually vote our way out of this one. It's sad, but at this point, no matter what happens, if we vote in the Conservatives, they're going to do the same thing. If we vote in the NDP, they're going to take us towards communism just a little bit faster. If we vote in Trudeau, we're already living it. So there's not much we can do, and there's no hope for any new party. I know people want to believe in the PPC dream, but it's not going to happen. So it's sad, but it's not going to happen unless something major, like destructive, happens. Maybe, you know what, maybe the PPC, or the idea of the PPC, might happen in about 20 years after we've gone through poverty and millions of people dead in Canada from cold because we couldn't heat our homes anymore. Maybe that's when PPC will get voted. So never say never, but I'm just saying right now, not really possible. So anyways, okay, that's pretty much it for me, guys. I'm going to wrap it up now because my voice is going. Rage, if you're still there, I have no idea how you do live stream for 4 hours. I do not get how your voice does not just go. Mine is done after this. I won't be able to talk for another hour. But anyways, thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate that you're tuning in. And please join me next week as we go through 1940. The war effort is going to be full blown at that point. We're going to see directly how a state of war impacts people, but real life people, not from a historian perspective, but from a perspective of somebody who was actually there and lived through it while going through massive discrimination at the same time. So anyways, join me next week, 1940, and whatever happens that week, I'm going to report back on that as well. So hopefully we don't see a Coca-Cola again, but never know. And have a great week, guys. Love you all. Big kisses, and take care.